Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is a briefing from www.central-mosque.com in August 2019, in continuation of what I talked about a few weeks ago when Indian government revoked Article 370 in Indian occupied Kashmir. I'm going to pivot and I'm going to talk about the larger issue of Indian Muslims. My du'as and my well wishes are with Muslims in Kashmir. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect you. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect your honor. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect your dignity. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep you safe, sound, and secure. Ameen. However, as for over a decade, what I'm talking about is there is mortal danger to millions of Indian Muslims at large. And this is what I want to discuss as to why it's happening, how it might happen, and what to do about it. Before we talk about this topic, let's just go through a very quick flash of history. Islam arrived in India through two separate means. One, through South India. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, had a miracle when he pointed to the moon and the moon split. In the south of India, there was a king. His name was Chakravarti Farmas, and he witnessed this miracle. And he asked his son to go. He asked his local people what it was, and they told him that it was a prediction about the coming of a messenger of God from Arabia. So he dispatched his son, who met Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, embraced Islam at his hands, and on his way back to India, he passed away in Yemen, and his grave is still there. So that happened in the year 618 in the south of India. Almost 90 years later, 17-year-old Muhammad bin Qasim, he invaded parts of India which are today called Karachi, or in Pakistan, all the way to Multan. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to quote you. So the first bit where we talked about in the south of India, that was the king dispatching his son accepting Islam at the hands of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and also conveying his greeting and well wishes from his father. And some stories also say that his father also became Muslim. The second one was a military invasion. Um, and what I'm going to do is that I'm not going to quote you Muslim historians. I'm going to quote you Stanley Lane Poole, who wrote this book, Medieval India Under Mohammedan Rule. So what he talked about is when Muhammad bin Qasim got to Dibal, Karachi today, and then eventually to Multan, what he talked about is people came out dancing and singing in the streets, welcoming him. And then he also says that nothing he left Muhammad bin Qasim uh, after being militarily victorious, left people's shrines, their homes undesecrated, and he proclaimed that the temples of Hindus will be inviolate, like the churches of the Christians and synagogues of the Jews, and so on and so forth. This is a testimony of a non Muslim about how Islam got to India militarily. Now, on the 20th of September 1857, that Muslim rule, which had continued in some way, form, or another, came to an end when the British actually arrested the last Muslim ruler of India, Bahadur Shah Zafar. So that tells us that the Muslim rule basically in India lasted for 1095 years, roughly over 1,000 years. Over a period of 1,000 years, when the Muslims got to India, Hindus were a majority. When the Muslim rule in India came to an end, Hindus remained a majority. There were temples all over India. The temples in India remain today. Hinduism was practiced in India. Hinduism remains to be practiced in India even today. Now, when you encounter Indians, specifically Hindus, that I'm referring to on social media and even real life and stuff, some are basically the media in India is really, really, really bad. Now, some don't know, while others do know, but insist on a certain narrative. For example, years ago, maybe decades ago, I was working with an Indian girl, and she did not know that basically Taj Mahal was actually built by Muslims. Now, to this day, I don't know if she was making it up or she actually didn't know the Taj Mahal was built in India. But I'm talking about ignorance prevails to such an extent that a large majority of Indians, particularly in social media, either feign it or refuse to admit it. So Hindus remained a majority, remain a majority today. They're free to worship in their temples and so on during Muslim rule and even today. Contrast this to actually what happens from 1920s onwards. A lot of people think that basically the Indian Muslim divide, or the two nation theory, which led to the creation of India and Pakistan, was basically due to Muslims demanding a separate homeland. Nothing can be further from the truth. So, as far as Muhammad Ali Jinnah, the founder of Pakistan, is concerned, and Gandhi, who is one of the attributable founders of India, are concerned, they had extremely good relationships for a very long time. They both worked for Hindu-Muslim unity, and they all worked together along with many other people. If you study the history of the independence of India, you will notice that there were many people who were involved in the struggle, regardless of their faith. There were Sikhs, there were Hindus, there were Christians, and everybody else. Okay, loads of people worked towards independence of India. So they continued for a very long time. In fact, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, the founder of Pakistan, was known as the flag bearer of Hindu Muslim unity. Even the failed Cripps mission, which happened way later in 1942, the Indian National Congress and the Indian Muslim League were both united in rejecting it and issued a unanimous statement in condemning it. So, what then led to the situation that we are in today? Another one, cabinet mission, 1946. So basically, the British wanted to give some sort of a token semblance of independence to India, and that's what 1946 cabinet mission was about. Um, and Muhammad Ali Jinnah, this is 1 year before the independence of India, actually accepted this cabinet mission plan, which would have led to a united India, but some sort of autonomy to certain sections, groups of provinces and stuff. So this was never about the independence of Pakistan. So even before 1 year before that, he was ready to actually accept a united India. So now we need to ask the question, what happened? Why are we here? This whole story starts actually boiled over in 1925, to be honest with you. So basically, Hindus, they basically started a rhetoric that India, the undivided subcontinent of India, actually belongs to the Hindus. And in 1925, they formed this organization called RSS, to which the present Prime Minister of India is a member. And it was actually started by Kesham Baliram Hejwar. And they basically said that this is a Hindu Rashtra, Hindu nation, and it needs to be governed for Hindus, and everybody else is from an outside, and they must live and operate under a subservient rule. So this is, when you read the history of RSS and people who were involved in it, they were great admirers of Hitler and Mussolini and stuff, and they were basically fascist from the beginning. So they wanted to banish, they wanted to punish, they wanted to oppress everybody else, let alone Muslims. Muslims just happen to be a visible symbol in India, right? This isn't just about Islam, it's about everybody else. It's about Christianity, right? It's about Judaism, and it's about everybody else. But Muslims just happen to be the most visible symbol to them. And don't forget, as I said, the Muslims ruled over India for 1095 years. So this issue of Hindu Rashtra, so as I talked about, as far as Muhammad Ali Jinnah and Gandhi are concerned, they're all working towards Hindu Muslim majority, a Hindu Muslim, some sort of trying to come to some sort of an agreement when the British leave. But in 1925, RSS established. The first time we hear of the word called Pakistan is a full 5 years after that, on 29th of December 1930, after this fascist organization is established in India. And you keep hearing about this again and again and again. This is BBC's article about an individual called Savitri Devi. In 1939, she wrote a book called A Warning to Hindus. I want you to pay attention to her earring. Look at the symbol, swastika. So basically, what she talked about is, she said the targets of this resistance were the Muslims, who were a threat, according to her, to the Hindus. And this is the same fear that kept continuously being echoed. So somehow they thought, so this is obviously an absurd way of looking at it, because the Muslims ruled India for 1095 years. If they wanted to, there wouldn't have been a single Hindu left, there wouldn't have been a single temple left, there wouldn't have been any sign of a religion called Hinduism. But they're talking about Hindus being in danger today. Even today, when India has a population of, over a billion, the military, the government, BJP has absolute majority in the Indian parliament, they still keep saying Hindu khatre mein hai, Hindu is in danger. So the Hindus were not in danger in 1095 year rule of Islam of or Muslims. The Hindus were not in danger under nearly 250 to 200 years of colonial British rule, but the Hindus are in danger today. So this rhetoric started from 1925 and it continues to gain pace against what Muhammad Ali Jinnah and Gandhi were trying to say. And then that led to, as I talked about, the cabinet mission. When that happened in 1946, Muhammad Ali Jinnah realized that when the British leave India, Muslims will become subservient. The rights of Muslims will not be given. And he also predicted that those Muslims who remain behind in India will forever be given, will forever try to prove their allegiance to the state of India. And that's exactly what happened. Fast forward to the independence of India. The first terrorist attack in India was the assassination of Mahatma Gandhi, the founder of India, and it was done by this guy called Nathuram Godse on the 30th of January 1948. His court testimony is extremely interesting. It was not published in India for many, many, many years. Today it is available in a book form, and the book is called May It Please Your Honor. In it, he talks about a whole bunch of things in his court testimony, but what's important is article 15. And basically what he talked about is, he says, I firmly believe that the teachings of absolute ahimsa as advocated by Gandhiji, meaning peace and everybody coming together, would and harmony, would result in the emasculation of the Hindi community and thus make the community incapable of resisting the aggression or inroads of other communities, but especially the Muslims. So he firmly believed that the Hindus are being run over by Muslims, and he felt that Gandhi was actually favoring the Muslims and so on, and that was the reason why he murdered Gandhi. He shot him 3 times, and he testified to this in court, and he made no qualms about it. He wasn't apologetic. He actually said that this is what's going to happen. Now, in the Hindu religion, what they do is they basically they burn the bodies of their dead. They don't bury him like Muslims, but what they do is they spread the ashes. It is said that the ashes of Nathuram Godse are still there. And what they want to do is they want to come to, the Indus River, which is on the Pakistani side. When Pakistan is reconquered and reunited as a united India as it used to be before the partition, that's when they will actually sprinkle the ashes in the Indus River in the Pakistani side. So, because the Hindus believe that the entire India, Akhund Bharat, the entire India is a singular piece, and it is a central pivot to their religion. So, basically, Muslims have done an unpardonable sin by chopping up pieces of their mother India. So, Nathuram Godse, who was his ashes are still not scattered to this day. Now, Nathuram Godse, the first terrorist of India, and RSS, it was actually based on the ideology of this guy, Vinayak Damodar Savarkar. So he was a Hindu fascist. 1966, he wrote his book, Six Glorious Epochs of Indian History, in Marathi. It is today available in English. Now, this is where things begin to heat up. So they basically created this narrative that the Muslims came and they oppressed the Hindus. The Hindus are in danger. The Hindu religion is in danger. The way of life of the Hindus is in danger. Now, what are they going to do about it? In this book, this guy called for rape of Muslim women for a number of reasons. One, because he said for population control, what the Muslims did, the invading Muslims did in India, in his view, what he said is basically they took over Hindu women, right? And they basically got them pregnant to increase the population of Muslims of India. They believe that that's how Islam spread in India, by Muslims raping Hindu women. So he wants to particularly punish Muslims for a number of reasons. His reason number one, so he basically says that because the Muslims applied rape as a tool to spread these populations, Hindus must do the same. And he gives an example. He goes, look, this comes from the animal kingdom. He goes, basically, you have a herd, and if the population of oxes grow, then nothing happens. But if the population of cows grow, then obviously you can make the cows pregnant and the population will grow mathematically. He actually says that in his book. Second thing he says basically that the Muslim women, Begum, is what he calls Muslim women. It's a last name of many Muslim women, and in India they refer to them as Begum. Uh, so basically, he said the Muslim women never protested against the atrocities committed by their male counterparts, and in fact, they encouraged them to go and seek out Hindu women to rape and so on and so forth. So then, lastly, he says because of this complicity of Muslim women, they never suffered the consequences, but they must bear the consequences of it now. And he clearly calls for the raping of Muslim women in his ideology, in his book called Six Glorious Epochs of Indian History. This call for rape continues to echo today. So, as I talked about, why the RSS, to which the Prime Minister of India belongs to, what is their ideology? Their ideology is clear-cut fascism. If you look at certain acts of terrorism against Muslims under Breivik, you watch YouTube videos, you go to certain forums, which I'm not going to put the links on, which are actually populated and frequented by white supremacists and fascists. You will see Hindus very clearly saying Hindu fascist. I don't mean to say Hindus because not all Hindus are like that. This particular right-wing Hindu fascist, they go onto these forums, they go onto Twitter, they go onto YouTube to basically go and promote this kind of white fascist ideology, and they backed Hindus. As you can see, this is a picture from BBC. Look at the earring of this Savitri Devi. This is not a Hindu symbol. These people genuinely adored, admired, and wanted to follow Hitler. So, going on, so Savarkar very clearly calls for raping of Muslim women. This call carries on even to this day. This is Sunita Singh GOD. She was suspended. She was party leader in one of the youth wings of BJP, and she actually wrote this on Facebook, and she actually says that she calls upon her Hindu brothers to make gangs of 10 and go roam around in the streets, find Muslim women, enter their house, rape them, impale their private parts, and hang their dead bodies in the bazaars. And she actually said again, and she goes, make groups of 10, 10, 20, 20 Hindu men and go around, rape them. India has many provinces. The largest province of India is Uttar Pradesh, which has over 200 million people. It is also the most politically important state and has the most seats in Indian parliament. This guy is the chief minister. In one of his conventions, and it is too uh, distressing to hear, so I'm not going to let you. I have the clip, but I'm not going to play it, but you can Google it. Basically, in one of his rallies, he's sitting on the stage, and one guy actually says that what Hindus of India should do is they should even dig up dead Muslim women, rape them. He actually says that in one of the rallies. So what is the state of the Indian Muslims today? So now what I've done is I've highlighted the ideology, which is fascism, starting from the 1920s. Let's don't think that this is a random act as to what's happening in Kashmir, or what's happened in Babri Masjid, or what happened in 2002 in Gujarat. These rapes and massacres and mob lynchings of Muslims that keep coming again and again and again. These are not random acts. There's an absolute ideology behind it, which is fascism. The world witnessed it in the Second World War at the hands of Hitler and what he did to the Jewish people. This, unfortunately, is what Muslims of India are confronting. There are 202 million Muslims in India officially. Even officially, it is the second largest Muslim population of any country. But they are subjugated, they lack opportunities, they're discriminated against. And one statistic that you should bear in mind is 1 out of 4 beggars in India is a Muslim. Now, unfortunately, when Muhammad Ali Jinnah realized this fascist ideology of the Hindus, he realized that eventually there's no way Muslims and Hindus are going to be able to live peacefully under Hindu rule. So he proposed Pakistan, and eventually Pakistan was created. Many Muslim scholars, in fact majority of Muslim scholars of India, rejected this idea, and they refused to actually participate in the independence of Pakistan and then migrate to Pakistan. My grandfather was one of them. They made that choice. Since then, they have continuously tried to prove their loyalty to the greater Indian population and suffered again and again and again because nothing seems to work. Today, the second largest Muslim population in the world, Put aside Kashmir, unfortunately, for a minute. The entire over 200 Muslims in India are alone, defenseless, powerless against a fascist state, against a complete domination of one fascist party. It is the Indian Muslims who are in mortal danger. Nothing can personify this to what happened compared to what happened to this 8-year-old girl, Asifa Bano, in Kashmir. She was actually kept inside a Hindu temple, raped by multiple people. This guy, Sanjay Ram, he was a caretaker of the temple. She was repeatedly drugged and raped and later killed. These lynchings and rapes are happening again and again and again. When you ask how come there's so many open calls for raping Muslim women, even dead Muslim women, because it comes from the ideology of this fascist organization. It actually says that in the book why it should happen. One, they say, look, we should basically pay the Muslims back in their view of what Muslims did. Nothing like that actually happened. Secondly, they said, it's a population control. Muslims are growing. Now, if you live in Europe or you live in America and you have any idea about the fascist leanings of white supremacists, they say exactly the same thing. They put this myth that the Muslims population is bearing and Muslim, as I said, I don't wish you to go to these forums. I do. I monitor them and I go there and so on and so forth. The kind of vile stuff they say about Muslims, they're breeding, infesting the Western culture. The Hindus are saying exactly the same thing. Now, the fascist ideology, they believe that they come from the from the Aryan culture, and they try to get cozy up to these white supremacists and white fascists, and the white fascists actually hold them in absolute contempt. The white supremacists, they hold the Hindus, the fascist Hindus of India, in absolute contempt. That still does not stop them. Go and actually, no, don't do that. If you look up the YouTube videos of these white supremacists and stuff, you'll notice that majority of these comments are coming from Hindu fascists who keep saying that we're behind you, kill these Muslims, crush them, destroy their generations, rape their women, and so on and so forth. On their forums, on social media, and so on, they're actually saying that. In fact, on social media, on Twitter in India, the calls to boycott Muslims, mass boycott of Muslims on all their businesses and so on, frequently trends. Not one time, not twice, frequently trends where people keep saying that I'm proud that I refuse to sit in a Muslim taxi or I refuse to accept some kind of service from Muslims. And in fact, they're genuine and confirmed stories where Muslims cannot find rent and so on and so forth. Now, fascist ideology, rape as a weapon, what are they going to do next? From 1925 onwards, RSS, which is a fascist organization to which the Indian government and the Prime Minister belongs to, they always wanted to convert in India into a Hindu Mahasabha, an Hindu state defined based on religion. In order to do that, the Constitution of India was established by Dr. Ambedkar, which is a secular constitution, and they've always vowed to reverse it into a Hindu Mahasabha, a Hindu state. A constitutional change in India requires two-thirds votes in the parliament, which they do, and 50% approval of the upper house of India, which they do. So what's happening right now in the present Parliament of India is it is passing bills at a record level and at a record number because pretty much the opposition has been demolished. They can do whatever they want. So they have the power to actually drive any constitutional changes, anything that they want, and this is on the agenda. When that happens, it is not if it happens, when it happens, millions of Muslims of India will become second-class citizens overnight. This is a fascist movement. Why are they after Kashmir? The reason being is Muslims of Kashmir are the visible sign of resistance. So they know that they want to make an example out of it. They want to crush this resistance to basically teach a lesson to the rest of the Muslims of India who are already neutered, demoralized, powerless, defenseless. They want to show them that, look, These are the guys who actually have been resisting for 70 years. Look, we taught them a lesson. So right now, as we talked about, there are roughly 950,000 military, paramilitary, armed forces in Kashmir. Kashmir is in a complete state of lockdown. What they want to do is use Kashmir as a petri dish to teach the rest of India a lesson. So what can you do about it? What we need to do is we need to make everybody aware as to why it's happening in India. What's behind this is a very clear fascist ideology. And if you look up in media and social media and stuff, uh, you know, disregarding BBC and CNN and stuff like that, there are many people in the West who are beginning to wake up and realize that they basically there's a fascist ideology behind it. When it comes to Muslims and stuff, what you don't see is when there's a terrorist attack happens anywhere, and other people of other religions lose their life in an unfortunate incident, civilians are targeted. You don't see generally Muslims rejoicing. You don't see that. Okay, you don't see Muslims trending. Okay, whatever, good. You regularly see that happening in the fascist Hindutva right-wing Hindus on the social media. Christchurch in New Zealand, you clearly see it trending. They're actually saying it. They're happy about it. As I said, Andre Brevich, you see them uh, doing this kind of stuff. So this ideology is the one that we need to highlight. And they have clear links, or they tried to have clear links with white supremacy, because they're trying to say that the Aryan race are, and Aryan Samaj and so on. White supremacists reject them, obviously, because these are brown-skinned Hindus from India. Nevertheless, this is what they're trying to do. My appeal to everybody listening to this is, please pay attention to this fascist ideology. Unfortunately, Muslims of India are oblivious to it. This year in elections, right before the results, I was sitting down with a scholar from India, and I'm not talking about just a normal Maulana. This guy is extremely high up in India, and I was talking about elections. So election results were going to come the next day. This was the night before. So I asked him, Maulana, Modi is going to win, because all of the exit polls were pointing in a certain particular direction, and this Maulana said, no, 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 you've been mistaken. We have broken the back of Modi. Modi came with an even bigger majority the next day. I was astonished, right? In 1947, now some Pakistani nationalists, they say that they blame the Indian Muslims, and they say, look, you deserve what you get because you didn't join Pakistan. No, astaghfirullah, that's not my intention, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala humiliate these hyper nationalist Pakistani Muslims. That is not the point. However, I do make a point that some of these Indian Muslims did, they called Muhammad Ali Jinnah Kafir Azam and things like that, and they said he was a secularist and so on and so forth. And even today, there's hardly any resistance from Indian Muslims about Kashmir. Okay, and many of the Darul Ulooms and many of the ulama and stuff, they are now saying that Kashmir is a political situation, and we don't want to get into a political argument and so on. The resistance which is coming from inside India is coming from from Muslim politicians, and Allah knows what their intentions are, and from Muslim university students who are joining other forces who are against this gust. And it is a sad situation. And as someone who's a student of history as to what happened in partition, what happened in India, Bangladesh, and Pakistan, it is basically pretty much what happened in the 1930s, 40s, and in the 1947, that these leaders of Muslims, so-called leaders of Muslims, are basically not realizing what's coming upon them. I end with this by again making dua. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help and protect and safeguard millions of his Indian Muslims, and particularly Muslims of Kashmir, because they are the flame of resistance. They are visible. So the Indian state is deliberately targeting them to make them an example in front of the other millions of Muslims who are absolutely neutered, powerless, defenseless anyway. So for 70 years, these Muslims, they go one after another. They try to prove their loyalty to the state of India, and they just keep, and no matter what they do, they're being demanded to do more and more and more. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect them and all. Our duty is to highlight the clear fascist ideology, tendency, and action of these right-wing Hindutva supporters. And because of the population of India and so on, their voice is amplified in the social media. So we need to do our part. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us all. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.